Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. Myself and Scott Shefferman host this show, and we've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Koba, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
Security Weekly. You can now find us on Instagram. Follow us for highlight reels, giveaway announcements, and more at Sec Weekly. That's SEC Weekly. All right, now for the Enterprise Security Weekly News. Mr. Tyler Shields has joined us. Hello, Tyler. Good to see you.
Hello, Adrian. How are you doing, my friend? Great to see you, and great to see you as well, Katie.
And did you see? It is no longer Katie Teitler before you. It is Katie Teitler. Damn, I'm scrolling through my script. Santullo.
Yes.
So it is funny. I just finished putting the final touches on this week's issue of the Cyber Y, and I feature a KD, what I thought was a KD Teitler article in the Cyber Y this week, and sure enough, I looked. I'm like, why is your last name changed? And yes, congratulations, Katie. That's fantastic news.
Thank you.
All right. If you want to follow along with the stories we're talking about today, which are probably too many for us to go through, as always, when we take a week off, we took a week off for Thanksgiving. You know, we now have 33 articles here to go through. A lot of them maybe we'll go through all at once. You can go to securityweekly.com/ESW341 if you want to scroll through there and browse the different stories that we've pulled in for this segment today. All right. So yeah, funding, like there's no huge funding in here. I don't think there's any companies I even recognize in here. So still seeing a ton of early stage stuff, some, debt financing for older companies, not a whole lot in between. C's and D's and beyond are still extraordinarily rare, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, the world has recalibrated, I guess, so to speak, right? And companies have gotten smart. They've gotten to the point now where they're raising what they need. They're not raising what they want. They're raising what it takes to actually maybe run a business and build a business. And it's probably still overfunding. Many of these, like $5, $7, $10 million seed rounds and A rounds, are probably overkill for what's really needed, but it's 25% of what was happening at peak insanity. So congratulations to these early stage companies that are, Cybel, 6.2 million. Actually, it looks like that expands their Series B, so they're not a good example of what I'm trying to say here. But AppMap, 10 million. What's the 7.7 million here for one that doesn't have the company name in the title? Lasso Security emerged from stealth with 6 million. A Parisian company, Kevlar with a Q. That won't make it hard to find when you're Googling it. Raised 4.5 million
Kevlar.
euros.
I think they're wanting it to sound like Kevlar, like Kevlar vest.
With a Q. So when you search for it, you'll incorrectly spell it, but that's fine. That'll work.
Yeah, you'll get it. Yeah, it'll Google will correct it. Will correct your spelling of their company's name.
Oh, that's wonderful. Google's smart enough to help you out. But anyways, handful of companies this week on the smaller end in the seed rounds. There's a couple of B extensions, the Cybel B extension. So no real surprise here. New infusions, and we're just seeing the correction down to. I was watching another podcast today of a very, very famous angel investor that both Adrian and I follow very closely, and he commented that we're actually seeing valuations in the 2009 to 2014 range now for early stage companies, which I found that to be a very interesting commentary in the sense that we've regressed a decade with regards to early stage valuations. They're coming in now in the seed to A round, pre-seed round in the 5 million, 8 million relatively consistently, which I think it's a good thing. I think it's a reset that we needed.
I think it shows a sign of maturity for our industry that a lot of people have been working for a long time. I think when we're in security, those of us who live and breathe it every day, it's like, come on, this has been around for a while, but it really hasn't. And just the push towards all of this new innovation, the push towards, hey, cyber is the next new frontier. I think it shows that we're actually starting to enter a period of a certain level of maturity, that it's not the newest, shiniest toy. And like you said, that's a good thing. We don't want to be the newest, shiniest toy. We want to be reliable, dependable, effective. I know probably some people will argue, but that should be the goal of security programs and security tools.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, were you saying that the valuations are going back a ways, or the funding, or both? Funding size?
Well, the valuations are jumping back about a decade now, so it's normalized.
Because it seems like the funding sizes are still the same, right? Because you still have to pay people the same amount, right?
No. Usually they're probably actually recalibrated lower as well, because most of your early stage funding is based on a percentage of the company that they're trying to achieve. It ends up mapping. But you can kind of think of it as just that peak curve in valuations that we saw hit, 2021, the insanity levels where everything was billions of dollars on no revenue and everything was out of whack, has now normalized back to about somewhere between, and I know it's a wide gap, but 2009 to 2014 window of valuation amounts for compared to revenue, right? Compared to where a company might be sitting at in its growth phase. So I personally think this is a great thing. It brings it down to reality. I think maybe even a little bit under where it should be today.
Right. Well, we knew it was overinflated. We talked about that, for a year and a half, right? Like every episode, we're like, none of this makes sense. When's it going to stop? And it hit a brick wall. Yeah. The thing, I imagine, as for the funding sizes, like number 3, Harfang Lab is a French company building an EDR. I would imagine, if anything, the amount of capital you need to build a competitive EDR is more, not less in 2023 dollars. But maybe because they're in Paris, like that's something they can pull off. They can be like an EU specific EDR, and that's how they compete.
Yeah, I'm definitely not. I wouldn't even consider myself an amateur when it comes to European funding and European cyber. Like, I just generally have stayed focused in the United States, trying to keep my scope tight. But so can't really comment on that. But what I would like to throw out there is that this same particular angel investor that I was hearing on a podcast not more than an hour ago also said that most companies now are actually building their businesses using AI. So actually using AI to speed up the pace at which they can do research on their market, the pace at which they can create positioning and messaging, the pace at which they can create sales collateral, everything is increasing in speed, which is lowering the cost that it takes to actually create a business even further than it was already lowered by having SaaS platforms that we would leverage.
With the exception of that EDR one, I think every single one of these 10 funding items here is either protecting use of AI, or like there was a quote I wanted to throw out here. Lasso is setting the standard for LLM cybersecurity by safeguarding every LLM touch point. So every single one of these 10, except for the EDR one, I think is either using AI and mentions it, in the funding post, or is like Cable says, AI-powered threat intelligence, AI-powered threat investigation for federal bodies. It's just pasted onto the front of everything. So, apparently that's the new big data, the new zero trust. Like it's required to be in every funding raise, apparently.
And the funny thing is, that's not even what I'm getting at. As much as I appreciate that and agree with you, what I'm getting at is literally just the tasks that have to be done to build a business.
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just saying it's fundamental level. Yeah, it's in every part of it.
It's impacting the whole stack. Yeah, it's impacting the whole stack from bottom to top, from business fundamentals to how you deliver your technology, to protecting AI directly itself, to maybe using AI in a protection angle. There's so much of a hook here. It's almost impossible to ignore. And I've said this before, it takes me back to .com days, right? When I was watching the web emerge, right? Because I'm that old guy, and for those of you that see me on camera, I've got the gray beard to go with it. You're sitting here looking at these websites popping up left and right in 1999, 98, going, holy smokes, there's something here. That's what this feels like. Again, I have no idea how it'll manifest itself or what the end game will look like, but it's really neat to be a part of.
Well, now they're popping up left and right because there's like 20 tools out there that will auto-generate your website using AI. So, yeah, maybe that's the justification for the smaller funding rounds is, well, you don't need a marketing team anymore. You can just let AI do it, right? And I laugh, but I'm only partially joking on
that. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it is. So Broadcom completes acquisition of VMware. Most acquisitions, people aren't really bullish on, people who are using the product or people who work there. But in this case, most of the stuff I've seen on LinkedIn and other channels have been pretty negative, mostly because they're laying off a bunch of people, and other stuff that's gone in Broadcom has generally not increased in quality.
Yeah. I was just waiting for the remainder of that headline, right? The headline specifically says Broadcom completes acquisition of VMware. I was waiting for the ... and then lays off tons of staff, right? Because that's been the news.
Yeah, it's already happened.
The second half. Yeah, that's been the big news in the last, I think, 48 to 72 hours has been the quantity of layoffs that are occurring around the acquisition. At the end of the day, Broadcom operates really close to a private equity firm. Right? They come in there, they take things over, they force their own processes into play, and hey, maybe it'll work. Maybe at the end of the day, it's going to make Broadcom money, or they wouldn't have done it. But what'll it mean for the VMware technology and the people that adopt it? That's to be determined. Sometimes it's a very big positive outcome and improvements occur. Most of the time, as you're alluding to, it's not. Most of the time, the technology falls by the wayside and dies off, and they milk the cash cow for a number of years, recoup their money, and go do it again.
Yeah, was it Broadcom that swallowed up Veracode and then spit them back out? That was very private equity looking. Like they, I think they made like $500 million in profit doing that or something like that.
Yeah, so CA picked them up. Then Broadcom bought CA, and at the moment of acquisition of the CA into Broadcom acquisition, when that closed, they simultaneously spit Veracode out to offset the cost of the acquisition of CA. And I believe, they were bought. Veracode previously was held, or post was held, has gone through a couple different private equity holders since then.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of them like a PE firm, but you're right. They do operate a lot like that. I imagine IBM does to some extent also. Well, IBM, they buy stuff and let it slow. Yeah, they buy it and let it slowly die. It's a little bit different at IBM.
I cannot comment on IBM, but yeah.
Yeah. A few other acquisitions here I don't think are really worth talking about. SonicWall picked up somebody was doing managed detection and response for MSSPs for small businesses, which makes sense because SonicWall is, I'd say probably the majority of their customer base fall into that SMB, SME category. Let's see. What else here? Amazon Q, I thought was, it's worth mentioning that it's out there now. And even with ChatGPT, barring all the drama around the the executive, and the stability of the company, everybody can build their own. It's easier than ever to build your own GPT now. Now that Amazon has this and ChatGPT lets you build, custom tailored stuff. It's just super easy to take a pile of data, feed it in, and create a custom chatbot to respond to questions based on that data set.
100%. I found it to be so easy. I did it this week to support the CyberWhy. I wanted to see how easy it would be to create a version of myself. So I created a chat GPT bot that I called Snarky CMO, and fed it with a bunch of previously written stuff of my own, and yeah, sure enough, it's pretty good, pretty accurate. At the end of the day, I still don't use the text that it generates directly with any consistency, but it sure as hell can trigger creative sparks in my brain for my own writing when I'm struggling or looking at a blank page. And given enough time and given enough data set to chew through, it'll be able to emulate me very, very well at some point.
So it's going to write the cyberwhy while you're sipping on daiquiris at the beach.
That's my plan someday. I just want to be rich and do nothing. That's the plan.
Yeah. And my problem is I like doing stuff. I will, if I die, it'll be from doing too much stuff. I'll just run myself into the ground.
We should get connected. You and I will work together someday.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's something I'm doing is just noodling around on a bass next to you on a beach when you've got a guitar, but I've got to be doing something.
There you go. I like it. Let's learn some music together. You can sing for us, KT. You can be our vocalist.
Oh, God. That would be horrible. Don't do that. I mean, that would be a good way to clear the beach, I think.
Turn it into a private beach. Works for me. Yeah, so it's and the main reason I put this in here is, and like I can't imagine security organizations like trying to monitor this stuff and negotiate this stuff. I mean, everybody and anybody at an organization has to be throwing stuff in all these AI assistants and playing with it the way we are, right? But at the corporate level with corporate data, and who knows, like we've been saying for a while, it's inevitable the wrong data is going to go in there, and that chatbot's going to be hooked to like the intercom bot on your website or the support at acme.com address or something like that. Somebody's going to realize they can ask support at acme.com for private data, and it's just going to give it up. So that's the reason I mentioned it.
And at the core, this is data security. This is system security. We're calling it AI security, but at its core, it's got to protect your systems and the access to the data, and then protect the data. I mean, if somebody wanted to be a real a-hole and they had access, they could just poison that data set over and over and over again.
So I'm going to check in a counterpoint here. And this is I want the audience to know this is a off-the-hip counterpoint. This is not something I've put a ton of thought into. So why are we that worried about data disclosure in that environment when we had literally the exact same feelings the first time Dropbox came out, or Box came out, or in general putting stuff into Google Drive? And now there's not a company on the planet, well, maybe there is, but no young company on the planet that doesn't have all of their data in the cloud in Google Drive right now. What's the difference, right? At some point in that model, we had to trust that Google would safely secure it. Now, sure, there's going to be screw-ups. I admit that. And it's, some point this leakage will occur and some people will get in trouble and hands will be slapped and issues will happen. But why is it as big an issue as it is when we had that same problem a decade ago? Yes, Katie, you're retorting.
I have an answer. I don't think that's a counterpoint to what I'm saying at all. I think actually what I'm saying is I agree with you. This isn't a new problem.
Yeah.
And why do we care about it right now? Why is quote unquote AI security a big deal? Because look at our funding list here. That's why it's a big deal. Because people are throwing money at it. This is not a new problem.
I mean, we spent what did it take, like a decade for people to start correctly configuring their S3 buckets? It's just that happening all over again.
Wait, aren't we still waiting for people to correctly configure their S3 buckets?
Probably, in some cases.
And so the lesson to be learned there is that there was risk. The provider, and we have to trust the provider in some ways to either automate the fixes or at least give us configuration capabilities to put secure guardrails in play. And it may not be there today because we're early, right? But a year, 2 years, whatever that number is, we can expect that a certain level of security has to be implemented for people to adopt it. The providers of the service will implement those security bars, and they already are, in the sense that, for example, my snarky CMO chatbot only has access to what was originally in the training stuff and what I handed, not what Katie hands it, right? So there's already a certain level of delineation and guardrails that are occurring. And in the long run here, this is just going to be another similar storyline 5-7 years from now to putting other data pieces in the cloud, and we don't even have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes back to what you said. These companies can use AI to find the solutions to figure this out a lot more quickly than we had to deal with data security 20 years ago, right? Like Dropbox and whatever the other tools are. It was like, oh my God, don't do it. And now nobody thinks twice about it. I mean, some companies might have acceptable use policies, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, lessons learned. And now we can use, whether it's AI, machine learning, whatever, to create these tools more securely, more quickly anyway.
So I am so much a fan of this idea, and I'm not worried about the security of it, that I'm going to jump ahead to, I don't know the story number, maybe you can find it quickly for me, but the Notion new Q&A feature lets you ask an AI about your notes. Have you looked at that article?
19. Yeah, 19.
Yeah. Article 19 is pretty awesome in the sense that I've been transcribing meetings now for a year.
Yeah.
I've been transcribing notes that I take into Notion for a year. The CyberY works off of Notion workflows, so every article I've ever put into the CyberY is listed in a Notion database. And now I get to have a chatbot that looks at and analyzes all that information for me in real time.
Pretty exciting.
My second brain is coming. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Well, this is what you were talking about 4 or 5
whatever
months ago that you wanted to build. They just did it. They did exactly what you wanted, essentially. Should have patented that idea.
I'm going to be the first in line to sign up.
You're never going to buy your island if you just wait on these ideas and let somebody else. But yeah, I mean, this is great if it can help. If it, it's just like we've been talking about automation forever, right? If this speeds up your workflow, this isn't replacing a human. This is, well, I mean, in some cases it might be, but it's just creating greater efficiency. It's stopping us from digging through. I was digging through notes the other day looking for something that I knew I wrote a company 5 years ago or whatever. I know I have it, but I had to manually go through my notes because guess what? They were written down. And I still haven't found it, so I had to just go off of memory. That's not a really great, efficient, effective, accurate way to work. Why wouldn't I?
I've always had one central place that I put all my ideas and notes in, and that place has moved over the years. It's moved from Evernote to OneNote and then to Notion. But man, the other day, so I know Evernote's getting shaky. Everybody thinks Evernote's maybe, has weeks to live or something like that. So it's like, I better get the rest of my stuff out of there. It took 10 minutes and like a few clicks for Notion to siphon the whole thing in. And so, yeah, I've got most of my thoughts from the last 10 plus years all in one place. So giving me the ability to leverage that, like the way when I was an analyst, the way I would use Evernote and OneNote, I would use it during inquiry calls. And like I'd remember enough details about something I wanted to talk about to type it into the search bar real quick. And, without even slowing down what I was saying, I could sound like I had this amazing memory, and start citing acquisition numbers and specific details and stuff like that. So, the power of a tool like that, is just really amazing for anybody that needs to be able to work with a large set of information like that.
Well, I mean, isn't that at the end of the day, isn't that exactly what we're trying to achieve? The older I get, the less memory I have, right? When I was younger, I could remember stuff a lot better than I can now. And my wife always loves to tell me I can't remember anything, but that's a whole other discussion. But at the end of the day, the older we get, the less we can remember because we've just seen so much. We've done so much. And if we can note it, comment it, record it, see it, have it saved, and give ourselves the ability to have a second brain that we can query in real time that finds things efficiently, that's powerful. And I think that's, I've been saying it for 6-8 months now. That's what we're on the precipice of.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, there's a few things I want to mention real quick before we get to ransomware, and probably want to spend the rest of the time just talking about ransomware. And so some weird legal stuff in the news here. And I mentioned all three of these during the intro. The Binance founder and chief, Changpeng Zhao, pleads guilty to money laundering charges. An ex-COO for, what was the name of the company? I mentioned it in the intro. Securalytics, Atlanta-based company. Are you familiar with Securalytics?
I know the story you're talking about. I'm not familiar with the company or the founder, but holy smokes, that story.
Yeah. So we always used to joke about this. We always, back when I was pen testing, stuff like that, we recognize the fact that a company is much more likely to take security seriously after a breach, right? So we used to joke what we need to do is start the breach as a service company, and just get them over that hump, right? Instead of them just waiting for it to take it seriously. And it seems like this guy literally did that and decided to use that as a lead generation tool. So he deliberately launched online attacks on 2 hospitals, later citing the incidents he caused in sales pitches. Wow.
Oh, the cojones on this guy. Wow.
Yeah, I want to see the sentencing, but there's a plea deal.
Pleading guilty to prison term of 10 years, though he may never see the inside of a cell. The court was recommended to instead sentence Singlet to 57 months of house detention due to his suffering and, quote, extraordinary, end quote, rare and incurable form of cancer.
Oh my gosh. Talk about adding drama to drama.
Yeah. I mean, Arma already caught up to him is what I'm hearing. Attacking hospitals, and now hospitals can't cure his cancer.
Irony.
If that's not karma, I don't know what is.
Karma. I mean,
and the final legal story gets even crazier. So I don't know how many folks remember Hacking Team, but it was very similar to the what was the Israeli company? It was basically selling implants and stuff like that and being used to spy on journalists and things like that. There's another one of these companies in, sorry, do you remember the name?
It's like right here.
Not important. It's not the one we're talking about today. The one we're talking about today is the Italian-based company called Hacking Team that did some of this stuff. And they infamously got hacked by some kind of hacktivist. I don't think they were ever identified or caught, but they put out this huge, like 8,000, 12,000 like word post about why they did it, step by step how they hacked Hacking Team, and the company never really recovered from it. And apparently neither did its founders, because one of the founders, or the founder, was arrested for attempted murder. Tried to kill a family member with a knife. So news just gets weirder and weirder.
I highly recommend reading the story, because I read it this afternoon myself, and just I could not believe the despair, the how much that spiraled so negatively. I mean, it was negative right out of the gate. It's one of those companies where you're not really rooting for them. You're just like, really? You're going to make money that way? But then you watch it just spiral down the toilet bowl, and then the personal impact that it had on these guys. It's just pretty awful.
So, funny anecdote about this. This was written up by my friend and journalist Lorenzo Franceschi Bicari. I'm not sure how to say his full name, but used to work at TechCrunch, now works at, used to work at Motherboard, now works at TechCrunch. And he posted this on LinkedIn. And so this image that you will see everywhere you see this story, this marketing image for Hacking Team, like that picture is not a picture of any of the employees. That's a picture of somebody from the marketing firm that helped put together their marketing. And somebody tagged him in the LinkedIn post. And in Italian, he basically said, Here we go again. Like my face is associated with this damn company.
Oh my gosh.
So that is not the guy who tried to stab his family. That is somebody who runs a content PR firm in Italy.
Oh,
That's
that
his
poor
face.
guy.
That he gets to be associated with this horrible company and its horrible
No wonder
founders.
he looks so unhappy.
So be careful who you take on as clients, I guess is the lesson here. All right. So, yeah, let's jump to ransomware. The very first ransomware story I have here is the aforementioned latest newsletter from the Reformed Analyst. And I figured I'd hand off the mic to you. We already talked about this a lot in the last interview. So if you haven't listened to that, I'd recommend going back and listening to the interview with Keith Jarvis. But yeah, and that basically confirmed, ransomware is definitely on the rise. They have the numbers to show that. But yeah, Katie, what made you choose this as the topic for your last newsletter? Or your most
Because
recent
quite
newsletter?
literally every morning when I sit at my computer, what I do is I, go through my daily routine and I get my bowl of cereal and my cup of coffee and I open up my 16 tabs of security media and it's like ransomware. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, we had a dip. It was so nice to have some variety for a little while. And now, it's just everywhere. And it's obviously not going anywhere. And like we talked about, I don't want to harp on this because we did have a great conversation, or you had a great conversation a little bit ago. It's evolving, it's morphing, it's more than just ransomware at this point, but like we're going to start to see some major issues if people don't take this seriously. And ransomware isn't just about some admin. I don't mean like security admin or IT admin. I mean some executive assistant was tricked into giving up her or his or their credentials. I don't mean that. We have to get past that. We have to actually do the really boring work of foundational security, because that's the only way to mitigate this.
Yeah, it's funny. I just authored this week's The Cyber Why, and I have a link in there to your stuff because I thought it was a great report. And I too have been it's constant. It's a constant deluge of ransomware it's probably every other day or every third day. A hospital,
it's every day.
Bank, it's literally every single day. And it's absolutely insane, the volume of ransomware. But at the end of the day, and what I put in my article is there was just this week, there was a big bust of some Ukrainian Ukrainian gang. I think it was within the last couple of days. And I said, so what? Who cares? It's not going to make a dent in ransomware, because when there's money to be made and there's criminals who are smart enough to do the work, it's going to happen. And the problem is there's no silver bullet. There's not even close to a silver bullet that can solve ransomware, because ransomware is basically leveraging the fact that there is a weak link. Doesn't matter what it is, because ransomware is not the problem in itself. It's the outcome of the problem. And so you have to solve all of the problems to be able to thwart ransomware. So we will never see the end of it if it continues to be capitalized, if it can continue to make money for the attackers.
Yeah, and it's the whole security program. It's not security awareness. It's not just a phishing issue. Like they will use any means to get in. Like I've said in the past, every ransomware case I look at just basically looks like a pen test, and pen testers almost never fail. So neither are the ransomware operators. And they even they've got a much better setup where groups will just get initial access, and they'll hand that off to somebody who's going to go in and do the internal work, grab creds, pivot, get ransomware on all the systems, or steal the data, or, whatever they're going to use as leverage for extortion, for getting some Bitcoins out of you. And it's, like we talked about in the previous interview, it's incredibly automated on the attacker's side at this point, and we're nowhere near. Defenders are nowhere near as well set up to defend against this.
And just he said in that last interview, it's it's so prevalent, and there are so many holes, and there's so many ways that this can be affected, that they can automate it. Automation only works if there's reliability and predictability. It doesn't work
it's not an option
as well on things that are random. That's the very nature of it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we won't see a stop to it, because they'll just move from attack vector to attack vector until we have perfect, and I'm putting this for those who aren't watching live on video, perfect is in air quotes, until we have perfect security. If we have perfect security, ransomware ends, right? But there's no such thing, and we know that. There's always going to be different weak links that can be exploited, and if people want to take it to the ends of blackmail and ransomware, then that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, and if you want an idea of the scale of this, go to databreaches.net. I've got a feed of that in one of my Slacks that I'm in, and also in my Feedly. And it's one of the places I use to prep for this podcast. Dissentdo does a great job. It's just a single person managing this, and has been managing these posts for well over a decade now. But that'll give you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about. Like, the entire first page is just a single day. The entire second page rolls across, or next two pages is a single day. It's just astonishing, the volume.
My first footnote in this article is basically, don't come at me if you see bigger ransomware stories, that have been popping up in the news in the last week, because I always write these ahead of time, and I don't have the time to go back and correct everything with all these ransomware, stories, because they're just every day. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. In our squirrel story here, we're running out of time here. Tyler's going to have to leave us. So how a tiny Pacific island became the global capital of cybercrime.
Is that your island, Tyler? The one that you're buying to go and play your guitar on?
Tokelau? I would never, ever leave you guys early to play a guitar. Never would that happen. However, I do have a call that starts at 5:30, which I just texted the person, so we're okay for a few more minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I've heard like 40% of their income, maybe it says it in this article, some huge amount of their GDP comes from just the running a TLD that ends in .tk. Just the web is just them running this .tk domain is a massive amount of this tiny island nation with 1,400 people. Smaller than most people's idea of a small town. Yeah.
And just for those listening who did not know what Tokelau is, or where it is, because I did not, according to Wikipedia, Tokelau is a dependent territory of New Zealand in the southern Pacific Ocean. It consists of 3 tropical coral atolls, Atafu, Nukunanu, and Whakaufo. And I'm so sorry for the pronunciation.
25 million domains, .tk domains out there.
You know what's funny? And maybe Katie can correct me if I'm wrong on this. She might know the answer to this. But I think that TK is a 2-letter combination that's not used in the English language at all anywhere. Is that correct, Katie? The reason why I think that's the case. And the reason why I think that's the case is it's a copy editing term that you put it into a piece and say TK fix this or TK change this. Because if you do a search for TK within the piece, it'll only show spots where you've commented.
Right. Because there are 2 letters TK that you never see together in the English language. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So are you thinking that's related?
You can put that in your useless book of information. And the reason why I thought of it was how many words end in TK that we could use to register domains. And then I remembered none, zero English words.
Yeah, I'm trying to frantically Google search.
And yet it's incredibly popular as a TLD.
Wow.
which is funny because it's such a weird ending. It's not like you'll end a word like, with two letters that makes sense to make like a whole word for a domain or whatever. Makes zero sense. Very bizarre.
There are words just outkicked, outskilled, outkissed, outkisses, catenate, tight knit, netkeeper, outkeeper. So there are, in fact.
See, I told you that's what I wanted to ask you.
But I got a little nervous when you asked me. And
the real question is then why do copywriters use the TK?
I don't know.
And we are way down a rabbit hole here.
Don't know.
It's an editing mark that means to come and is the equivalent to leaving a blank or brackets in text.
Yeah, it's an abbreviation, albeit an incorrect one, of to come, but that's TC. I don't know.
Man, did I take us down a squirrel hole, didn't I?
There are so many squirrels running around.
Squirrels everywhere. And,
Latka is not technically an English word, but
I'll even post into our Discord a link that talks about the history of the use of TK for those that care.
Nice. Yeah, that's that is a funny rabbit hole because that's one of the reasons I liked Medium, using Medium to write blog posts is it recognized that when you put TK in there. And the publish button wouldn't work if you still had a TK in your draft.
That's brilliant. I didn't know that. There you go.
You didn't know that? Yeah. No. Yeah, Medium, to this day, Medium is the best writing experience I've had. Very minimalist, bold. I don't even think you have underlined, bold, italics, headers. You could do some embeds. But it was just very nice to write in. It was easy to share your drafts with other people, which you can do in Substack and stuff like that. But yeah, recognize TK. When you put TK in there, it would not let you publish.
There you go.
Until you removed the TKs. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I had to ask. This is a very long read. This Squirrel article, so I had to ask ChatGPT to summarize it for me. And the TLDR is, despite initial benefits such as connecting isolated atolls and generating some income, the .tk domain's misuse severely tarnished Tokelau's reputation. The territory now faces the challenge of disassociating from the cybercrime hub image and restoring its international standing with its future sovereignty possibly at stake.
Okay.
All right. And that is the end of our podcast for today. And the end of our news segment. Thanks so much, Katie and Tyler, for joining me today. Today's been a whole lot of fun. I highlighted my week, many weeks, doing this podcast with you two.
Let's go.
Feel better.
All right. I have to. I will not be here next week. I'll be on vacation. And hopefully my COVID needs to be completely gone. I will sleep around the clock. I'll do whatever it takes for that to be gone so I can take my vacation. So that means we've got Dr. Doug from Security Weekly News sitting in for me next week. And I will be helping with the prep for that, prepping news articles and stuff like that. So Dr. Doug will be able to just show up and do the show. But I'll miss you all next week, but I very much need the time off.
Go have some Aperol Spritz and pasta and enjoy.
Yes, I will.
Oh, yes. Enjoy your trip. Enjoy your vacation, Adrian. Get healthy, buddy.
Big thanks to everyone for watching or listening to this week's episode. The show will be back next week, though I won't be here, but I'll be back the week after that.